Hey friends, let's talk about Descartes some more. Our reading this week is Meditations 3 and 4. If you can start 5 too, that might be good. Our last lecture, our last discussion, we already talked about the argument for the existence of God in Meditation 3. So let me back up a little bit, talk about the structure of the work as a whole, talk about what we're going to find in Meditation 4, and then maybe I'll let you in on the weird doctrine about God that I think really changes our perspective on the meditations and on Descartes as a whole. Okay, so first, back up, context, right? Descartes' goals to refute skepticism, show that we can know some things, to prove the existence of God and the immortality of the soul, like a good Christian philosopher is supposed to do. Third, secretly, like a good Christian philosopher is not supposed to do at this time, to refute Aristotle and give us new, firm foundations for the sciences. Descartes is really thinking about the structure of the physical world here. Okay, so those are the goals. Meditation 1, we doubt. The doubt takes the world away, clears away all these truths that honestly are already infected by the Aristotelianism of the age, right? So, when we think about, Descartes' readers, when they think about the world, they're thinking about things made up of matter and form. And Descartes is trying to get rid of that. So we doubt everything, and then we start thinking about how we know things, and we start building the world back, one little thing at a time, until we really can get access to the world again. So Meditation 1, we doubt. We doubt because the senses have deceived us. We doubt because this all could be a dream, and we doubt because, for all we know, could be a evil demon deceiving us. He floats the idea briefly. Maybe there's a deceiving God, an all-powerful being who wants us to be deceived. But he backs off of that, thinking that it feels like a contradiction. All right. But he gives us the evil demon anyway, so we get those powerful doubts. Maybe not omnipotent doubts, but those powerful doubts. All right, so we doubt, we discover that we exist. You can't be wrong when you think that you exist. Of course, I don't know that you exist in more ways than one. I mean, I'm sure YouTube's going to tell me that there's some views of this, but, is it right? I don't know. I could doubt your existence. But even, the existence of my partner, who's, well, not here right now. She's at work. But, I know that I exist because I am the subject of my experience. I know that I exist because I think, right? It doesn't work to say, I walk, therefore I am, for instance, because, frankly, I don't know. Even, let's say I sit, therefore I am, because I'm doing that. I don't know that I exist because I'm sitting here, because I actually don't know if I'm sitting here. What I do know is that I think I'm sitting here. I'm having the experience of sitting here. So it's the thinking, the experiencing, that guarantees to me that I exist. But, if this is all a dream, maybe I'm not sitting. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm, in a matrix battery cell, apparently they're not batteries, they're computers. Anyway, whatever. So maybe I'm not here, but I know that I exist because of the inner life. You know that you exist because of your inner life. I know that my partner exists as part of my inner life, but I don't know if my partner exists outside of my inner life. I know that this room exists in my mind, in my experience, but I don't know if I'm existing in this room. We get it? So we get truth about our own existence. We get truth about the contents of our minds. We get truth about ourselves. I know that I'm the kind of thing that has experience. But then there's still the unknown. Is the mind, is the thing doing the experiencing, this me? Is this me a body? I don't know. In the Discourse on Method, he seems to jump from, I know that I exist as a mind, as a thinking thing, an experience thing, and I don't know that I exist as a body, to the mind and body are separate. He doesn't make that leap here. It's going to take all the way to the sixth meditation to argue about the mind and body. So, pin in that. All right, so I know that I exist, I know that I'm a thinking thing, and I know the contents of my experience. But that's really about it. And then Descartes gives the argument for the existence of God that we discussed in our discussion last week. Now, again, how that goes is I find within myself the idea of an infinite thing, an infinite being, God. But I don't know if that idea is the idea of a real thing. So I have to work my way to it. Now, Descartes' doubts aren't supposed to let him use steps, but he can, I think, give you an intuition, something that you clearly and distinctly perceive to be true, like I think, therefore I am, like you know that you exist, that makes way for the next one. But they do have to they can't depend on another, right? So he can walk you through steps to get you to this revelation, but it needs to stand on its own, okay? So, I've got this idea of an infinite being in my mind. I understand that the idea of, say, emptiness, the idea of a whole or an absence has less reality than the idea of a thing, right? The water is more positive than the lack of a water is the idea of a negation. Now he says, like hot and cold, right? I can't really sort out, right? He's doing some sorting of his beliefs. I can't really sort out if hot and cold are related as full and empty are. But I know that like the idea of dirt is an idea with more reality. Right? It depicts more reality than the idea of a whole does, right? And he thinks he has confidence that the idea of the infinite has more reality than the idea of the finite. Okay. Keep that in our minds. Again, he shouldn't be doing things that require steps. And let's review a couple other intuitions, a couple other things that we have confidence about. Nothing comes from nothing. He thinks that this stands alone as a revelation, as an intuition. The way that I think, therefore I am, stands alone and must be true. Okay, so if nothing comes from nothing, he also gets that the cause can't have less reality than the effect. A cause has to have as much reality or more than the effect that's produced. After all, if there were more in the effect, where did that more come from? It couldn't have come from the cause, because that would be something coming from nothing. But this is supposed to be its own intuition, right? A cause has to have less reality than, can't have less reality than its effect. Okay, so if you find within yourself the idea of an infinite being, an idea of that has the most reality, it can't have come from something with less than infinite reality. Okay. We talked about this already. There's reason to be skeptical about this kind of argument. It's not a strong argument for the existence of God, but it plays a really important role in the Meditations because Descartes doesn't really have resources to do any of the more traditional proofs of the existence of God. At this point, he's still reasoning with his hands tied, right? He's still reasoning from this place of doubt. So he only really knows the contents of his mind, and so he can only really make an argument from the contents of his mind. So this is the best he's going to get. And, when we're following along, can we refute skepticism? We might have said, yeah, I know that I exist. I know the contents of my mind. But we might have gotten off the program in the third meditation. I usually kind of get off the program in the third meditation. But we should follow it to see what else he does, and also because we're going to read Spinoza. Okay, so he gets this proof of the existence of God. What does he need it for? What he needs it for is to justify the use of his faculties. He's happy with proofs. He's happy with truths that he can grasp in an instant. 1 and 1 is 2. I know that I exist. But he's happy with those truths that cannot be doubted, that can be grasped in an instant. But stepwise reasoning, right, is still left out. So to get that back, he needs to be able to trust his faculties. He needs to be able to trust that when he's using his mind correctly, it delivers truth to him. When he proves that God exists, he gets to loosen up some of these doubts. He gets to trust his reasoning with steps again. So that's what this is about. Now, the fourth meditation is a kind of problem of evil thing. He pauses a second and says, hey, look, I just proved that God exists. If my mind was created by a perfect being, then I should be able to trust it. But I've made mistakes. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've been wrong about things in my life. So how can I say that I can trust my mind because God, a perfect being, produced it, but also that I sometimes make mistakes? How do you do that? And you see, it's kind of a problem of evil here, but the evil that he's treating here is particularly epistemic evil, error, right? It's not sin exactly, although in the principles he does kind of pilot. Maybe we can apply this to sin too, but here it's error that's the problem. So he needs to give an account of error such that you can trust the mind when you're using it right, but there's still the possibility, there's still an explanation for how using it wrong can lead you to error. So how is the error our fault and not God's fault? How is it user error, right? When I make a mistake, it's user error, not a manufacturer's defect in the mind, right? So that's what he needs to provide us with in the fourth meditation. So a couple things. We're going to distinguish between the intellect and the will. The intellect has the ideas. Now, ideas in this sense they're kind of like the nouns of thought. He associates them with the imagination, but it does seem to go beyond the imagination, because the imagination for Descartes is that faculty that gives you images in the mind. But he applies the idea, the term idea, even to God, that, we don't have pictures in the mind. So think of ideas as like the nouns of the mind. Now he says, strictly speaking, a noun can't be true or false. Unicorn. Is that true? I mean, there's a sense in which unicorn is false. This gets referred to as material falsity, right? When it depicts something made up as real. But in general, just to say unicorn is not an error, right? You're not making a mistake when you think unicorn or when you picture a unicorn in your mind. You're not making a mistake. Error doesn't come just from ideas, and these ideas seem to be given to us from God at this point. Error comes from the will. Again, this is related to work on the problem of evil, which happens to be my specialty. Error doesn't come from ideas. It comes from the will. It comes from what you do. What is it that the will does that's susceptible to error? The will makes judgments. So, the problem, user error, that leads us into error is that we will make judgments about ideas that we don't really understand. The intellect is finite. There's only so many things that we clearly and distinctly perceive. There's only so many ideas that we have such a full understanding of that we are equipped to make judgments about them. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on what a circle is, and so I'm ready to say, pi r square is the area of a circle. Right? Yeah. See? I got a good enough grasp of it. I could define it clearly and distinctly, I think. But, right, anyway. But there's so many other things that I don't understand very clearly. So, we have a limited intellect. There's only so many things that we have such a clear understanding of that we're really equipped to make good judgments. Intellect. I'm not spelling this right. But our will is infinite. God couldn't have given us a better will, Descartes says, right? God could have given us a better intellect. God could have given us access to more clear and distinct truths. Should he have? That's in there. We'll talk about it. But he didn't have to, right? I mean, having a limited, having limited power, for instance, it's not a bad thing. But, more would be better. So it's not bad, he thinks, that God gave us a limited intellect. And it's not bad that God gave us an unlimited will. How is the will unlimited? Obviously, I can desire to fly, but that doesn't mean that I can fly. I can't do everything that I will. But I can will just about anything I want. I mean, right? I mean, I could... What can't I will? Maybe there's some paradoxes in there, but I can will really effectively, right? The will is unlimited. So, and the will is the thing that does judging. Judgments are where error formally reside. Judgments is the place. The judgment is the place where error resides, strictly speaking, formally speaking. So, the intellect that understands things is limited, but the will can make judgments about just anything. I could judge that unicorns exist but are more rare than horses or something like that. I could make that judgment. We should doubt this. Pascal, who doubts this in some way. Rabbit holes. The will for Descartes can make judgments about just anything. You could say, hey, 301 is a prime number, but without understanding perfectly well, right, what it is. So we are susceptible to error when we're going to make judgments with the will about things that we don't understand. If we restrain the will to only make judgments about things that we really understand, we'll never be mistaken. So, the tools, the mind, the intellect, the will are fine, Descartes says. No fault of God to have, made us only this perfect. That doesn't mean we're imperfect. It just means, it's more perfection that other things God are capable of. We only have, we have a limited intellect. It's not an imperfection. It's not a defect. It's just, it's just limited. But we have a will that is capable of making judgments about things we don't understand. When we use that will to make judgments about things that we don't understand, we are susceptible to error. And in fact, Descartes thinks that is error itself in some ways. We are using the intellect, using the will, I should say, our faculty of judgment inappropriately when we make judgments about things we don't understand. Descartes asks us to restrain the will and to only make judgments about things that we really understand. Maybe this is bad advice, but we want to follow Descartes through this program a bit. Okay, so let me transition then to tell you the weird thing about God. Maybe I need to make this a separate video. We want to, we'll split this up.